Okie doke. Here we are with the most important video to date on macros. I call it Prelude to a Macro. And what we're looking at, what we're trying to do is remember that the macro is the last resort. And we just got all fired up because we know how to make macros. And what I want to do before we go any further is think about what it is that we're trying to do. And really all we're trying to do is transfer this column from this sheet here over to the mini base and put it in the correct row somewhere in this list. And so what I want to do before we go anywhere is I want to think about, okay, when would I want to do that? Okay, well, first of all, I need to have an actual column available, so the date has to be present. Second of all, it has to have not been done. And finally, the time of day has to be right in order to want to go and do all of this. So it actually has to be possible to do. So looking back, we take those three criteria, we'll put them right here. These are the three things we need to decide, okay? So is there a column available? Let's go up here to column setting and let's look at this particular question right here, right? And the real heart of this is right here inside of these parentheses. So let's have a look at that particular part of the equation. Equals Control V, return. Okay, digging into this. Actually, if I could, I'm going to escape out of here. Let's focus on the function line up here. If the match for B2, in other words, the date, is in mini base on the date line, which is basically all of row 2, then I produce that number, what column it's in, right? And so if I go over to the mini base, and it says it's in column 1. Well, if you look at it, it's in column B. Well, the way that OpenOffice works, row or column A is given the number 0, and row 1 is given row 0. So this is in column 1, which to us is intuitively column 2. So it's kind of weird that way, but that's just how it works. Okay, real quickly, let's just delete this thing. All right, got rid of it. Now let's come back over to here, and what you see is there's an error in this column, and if you look up here, this says word problem. And that's what this whole question if-then statement is about. It says, if it doesn't have a spot, I want to put the word problem up. Otherwise, I want to know what column I'm looking for. Right? So that's where this whole thing comes from. This bit right here of the equation is the actual guts of everything. If I go back over to mini base and I do a Control Z, I undo, there my 1010 comes back, and when I get over here, lo and behold, this shows that we're in column 1, and this subset is just to help you understand the equation. Delete, we'll get rid of that. So that's the answer to my first question. Is there a column available? So if this doesn't say problem, then it will tell me the number of the column that I'm looking for. That'll become more important when the actual transferring routine comes into play. The second one for us is the time of day correct to scrape? And if you look right here, it says no. And that refers to cell N13 over here on the actual date. So if I scroll over here to N13, and you see this thing is making a decision to tell me no, and it makes sense because my link time was 1307, but those ranges aren't correct. It's past 1307 now. So we're basically, because this thing refreshed, we're outside of the window of when I can actually go ahead and import. So in order to make this work, I have to take a quick gander at the time. It's 16:30 now, so I'll put my start interval at 1600 And that should, actually, it looks like I updated it 1, so I need to put my interval at 1300. And now it says yes. Okay, so this was last linked at 1307, and so now, because I haven't refreshed, the computer thinks it's 1307, and this gives me a yes. Coming back to here, now this triggers yes. So that answers question 2. Is the time of day correct to scrape? And then finally, the question is, has the data been scraped already? And that goes to this H lookup right here, which goes over to the mini base and says, well, what's in column 2 on the 10th? And if I go over here and I look in column 2 on the 10th, it says pending, which says then to the computer that, okay, I need to bring this in if it's possible. And if all 3 criteria are met, in that we have a column, we can import, and we haven't imported already, then I should go ahead and do the import process. So right here in this cell, what I'm going to put in is I'm going to put in a decision, and I'm going to start with equals and I type it lowercase just so that if I make a spelling error, it'll stay lowercase. If I type it incorrectly, once I hit return, this will all upgrade to capitals. So starting up here, if this cell is not equal to P-R-O-B-L-E-N, not equal to problem, then that first criteria will give me a true. And then if this equals quote YES, and finally if this cell is not equal to quote COMPLETE, quote close. So that's my decision. What do I get? Well, this says true, right? And it says true because it is pending, it is yes, and it is a number. Well, let's go over here and let's have a look. Let's say I say this is no. Not all caps. Then it turns to false. Okay, Control Z, that cell appears to be working. Let's say I go over to the mini base and I say in here, COMPLETE, return, coming back over, once again, false, because this says complete. Okay, Control Z, gets rid of that, goes back to pending, so import trigger true. And finally, if I come over here, okay, that's column 1. Well, what if I didn't have a date put in? So if I go over here and I'll just delete this and come back, OS control says there's a problem, import trigger says false. Okay, so Control Z, make that back to pending. Now what I have here is the word true. Okay, well that makes life easy for us. Now I'm going to, outside of this, I'm going to nest if that AND statement is true, then quote ADY, quote, I put the word ready in, else I put in whatever's on this status page right here, pending. Boom. Okay, and once I get that in place, hit return. Hopefully I didn't make a mistake. The import trigger says it's ready. Okay, now it's interesting. Over here in this column, you'll notice the status is listed as complete, yet over here it says it's pending. So why is that? And the reason for that is this cell is actually triggering off of this cell. If I look into here, it says if D8, which is this cell, says ready, then I want you to write the word complete. Else, I want whatever's in E4. Right? So if anything is wrong, this is going to be the same as here. Let's test it and see. If I go over here and I delete that, okay, that's gone. Come back over. Now I'm back to pending. It's keying off of this because the import trigger is basically says it's not ready to import. Okay, well, we know that's not true because of how we've set everything up. So I'll Control Z, get my date back. And now when I look at this, I have this trigger right here all set up so that it is telling me that this sheet is ready to do an import of the data that's in this column. Okay. Very carefully, right click this, don't left click it, and get rid of it. Delete. Delete. There we go. Delete. I got rid of those so that I don't accidentally, because those things are programmed to make this either say complete or blanket, because that's what our previous macros made us do. So I got rid of that so we don't have to worry about it. I'm going to leave these all in here for now, but what I want to do, actually, you know, I think I'm going to go beyond this. Let's take this and I'll show you a hint. Control C, copies that, escape gets me out of that cell. I come over to here and I tell it to insert a note. Where's the note? Comment. Control V. Is there a column available? Nice. Now I'm going to come back over here. I'm going to reach inside the formula bar. Control C. Escape. Come back over here. Insert note. There's note. Boom. I'm going to put a return key on that. Control V. 2. Click down here. Get on this cell, dig into its contents. I'm doing the copy from an edit line mode, and then I have to hit escape to get out of it. And what that allows me to do is it allows me to sneak into the cell and just get the text. I'm going to back out here, hit the comment, return, Control V. And what this allows you now to see is a little note to remind you exactly what this cell is doing. So all I have to do is highlight over that little red bit, and I get the information that the import trigger is keying on. And that just helps you down the road when you go to troubleshoot this silly thing. You notice there's one on here. Decision is made in the Jackson Summit tab, so it tells you where to go looking for it, although you could just look at the cell and figure it out. But regardless, this is for future troubleshooting. Anyhow, Prelude to Macro actually has 0 macro programming in it. We're letting the spreadsheet decide if the macro should run, and that's the take home for that.